Okay, so welcome everybody. Happy Friday. My name's Meg and I'm part of the PowerToFly team and I'll be your host today. I am super excited to jump in on this chat with the Viasat team, but before we do, we have just a few quick housekeeping items to go over. So anybody that's joined us recently, there's been a couple changes, so maybe don't tune out entirely for the next 30 to 45 seconds. As always, our events are entirely about our participants. It's about our community. We want to make sure that you all get your, that it's time well spent with us. So to that end, we greatly encourage you to participate. You are more than welcome to turn cameras on if you'd like to see some other smiling faces. I know I highly value it now more than I ever have before. You're more than welcome to come off mute and to ask questions, comment, whatever, or add context to a question that maybe you pre-submitted. So you're more than welcome to do that. The one thing that we do advise is while you are doing that, try to, if it's me talking, well, you're more than welcome to interrupt me. I get paid to fill the silence. If anybody else is speaking, like our hosts, or sorry, our guests, or any other people, any other attendees, try not to over talk with people, kind of use your best judgment there. Just to let everybody know, this is being recorded and we are live streaming to our PowerToFly website right now. So if you have any kind of privacy concerns and you don't want to show up on the recording, just don't come off mute. If you don't come off mute, then you won't show up in any of the recordings. Your presence here there's no way to tell that you were ever at this meeting. For whatever reason, some people really have concerns about that, and we want to make sure that you are all well aware of how this works. But you are still more than welcome to participate in our chat because you can type into the Zoom group chat, at which point I will raise any questions you want raised. We can float comments and questions there as well. Now, if you want your question raised anonymously, super awesome. All you have to do is pick my name from the drop-down menu. It'll display like you see it under me right now, Meg Alexander at PowerToFly. Just make sure you send it to me and not to everybody else. I will raise your question anonymously, no questions asked. The other thing I will say is if you are going to come off mute to ask a question or respond, make sure that unless you are actively speaking, you go back on mute when you're done. If there's like, it helps to make sure that the audio quality is uncontaminated for everybody else participating, since Zoom will try and mute everybody but who they think is the main speaker. So, like I said, this is being recorded. We're going to send everybody that registered for today's event, whether you spend 5 minutes with us or the full 60, everybody is going to get an email in a couple days with a link to the rewatch. So you can check that out and send the recording out if you'd like. You can review it so that way you don't have to feel like you need to take notes on what people are saying. So please feel free to check that out when we send the link. The last but not least is you are more than welcome to keep up with us on social. So if you want to take pictures or video or anything while we're having our chat today, you're more than welcome to. Please share. We ask that you tag us. We are at PowerToFly on basically every social media platform. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel where this video, the recording of this video will live in addition to on our website. So we're going to jump in and introduce you to our speakers and show you the questions that are going to be asked, and then we will get moving. So first up, we have Allison Degeorge. Allison is Viasat's Corporate Sustainability Manager. She holds a master's degree in Sustainability Leadership from the ASU School of Sustainability. Allison supports a broad range of projects, including gathering the environmental data for and managing corporate social responsibility reporting efforts, partnering with Viasat's Environmental Health and Safety and Facilities team on campus improvement projects, and engaging with their employees through education and sustainability-focused events. So thank you so much for joining us, Allison.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
And then next up, we have Annie Dimascole. Annie started her career in the nonprofit sector with over 10 years experience in strategic resource development, including events, grants, individual giving, major gifts, annual campaigns, corporate giving, planned giving, and capital campaigns. In 2016, Annie decided to make a career change toward corporate philanthropy at Viasat and is now the Corporate Philanthropy Manager. Annie works within the social impact team to support Viasat's mission of connecting the unconnected through strategic giving and partnerships, along with managing the employee engagement, giving, and volunteering programs. Thank you, Annie, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
All right, so before we move any further, I do want to just call out the fact that Viasat is one of our very cherished partners. I'm going to throw some links into the chat here shortly where you can go to check out Viasat's page. You can click follow And one thing I would definitely encourage you to do is if you go to Viasat and you're either interested in working with them or just want to stay updated on new events that they might be participating in with us, definitely click that follow button. It's going to put you on their follow network so that you will stay updated when they're involved in upcoming events or if they add new roles or if they're hiring. So just go ahead and check that out when I put the link in the chat, probably about a minute or so. We do have 2 slides right here. If any of our type A joiners wish to take a screenshot, you're more than welcome to. I'll pause on this screen for a couple seconds and then go to the next one. These are all of the pre-submitted questions that you all sent in. They're amazing, so I really can't wait to dig into them. But one thing I do want to highlight is that this page and the next, I'm going to switch right now, it can be really helpful to know what's coming up or what other questions we're going to ask. So that way, if you have a question that might fit in well with something that we're going to touch on later in the chat, you can save your question, or if you see that nobody's asking anything similar to what you have, then you can ask the question outright. The one thing I will tell you is we definitely value conversation and involvement. So if you have a question, even if it's something you pre-submitted and you want to make sure that that question gets answered, please feel free to come off mute and ask, or to submit it in the chat, and I will I'll make sure that those get raised. So as we jump in here, I'm going to direct the questions to both of you, and then you can decide, between the two of you who would like to answer, and that way I'm not directing questions to the wrong person. But to get us started, what are your goals now, and what of the world's challenges and problems are Viasat currently trying to address?
Yeah, well, you don't have to worry because Annie and I are both very type A personalities, so we've already assigned every question.
Of course.
So I did just want to clarify really quickly before we dive into this question. Our team is called Social Impact. That is known other places as CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility. So when we talk about social impact at Viasat, we're referring to our team, just kind of semantics there. So I think this is a really cool question because Viasat as an organization overall is working to connect the unconnected, which is a huge challenge in the world. It affects educational equity, it affects, GDP and a lot of things. But our team, like I said, we're the corporate social responsibility team. So specifically, we want to make sure that while Viasat is connecting the unconnected, we're doing so in a way that is sustainable, responsible, and inclusive to all. And that's kind of the North Star for our team. And of course, I'm on the sustainability side and Annie will speak to giving, and there's very different goals, right, in the different teams. So I'm going to start high level for sustainability and then pass it to Annie. My biggest goal right now, because we are relatively young in this journey, my goal is really to measure our environmental impacts. It's very challenging when you're talking about a technology company that is working across so many industries. So getting our arms around that is a bigger challenge than it might first appear, but it's really important that we're able to address our sustainability issues in terms of priority, right? What are your biggest impacts? Because if you're working on something that in the grand scheme of things is 2% of your environmental impact, you're not using your time as well as you could. So the biggest goal for sustainability right now, like I said, is to get that benchmark to make sure we understand where our biggest impacts are. And I'm really excited to share for anyone who doesn't follow Viasat that closely. We just put our annual report this summer, and in there was a public commitment statement to our first public CSR report. So that will come out in the year 2021, and you can look forward to everything that you're used to seeing in a CSR report, data and analytics across a variety of topics, but of course, from my standpoint, most exciting is environment. So that's pretty high level, but with that, I'm going to kick it over to Annie to talk about some of her goals.
Allison. So hi everyone, my name is Annie, and I help support our corporate philanthropy programs to include employee giving and volunteering, and also some of our partnerships with some of our nonprofit partners. I would say some of our high-level goals in the giving program. One, I think as we grow globally as a company, it's really to increase the presence of employee giving and charitable giving in some of those communities around the world. In addition, I think one metric that we always look at is increased engagement of our employees through these programs. And so whether that's like increased hours volunteering or increased donation matching requests, and then just overall employees that are participating in the giving program. We typically hover around like 1 in 3, 1 in 4 employees that participate in the giving program, whether it's volunteering or matching. But we'd love to get that number to like 1 in 2. So that's a big goal of ours. Also increase brand awareness of the programs that we currently have for employees and in the community. The career site is a great example. Again, if you go there, you can kind of see some of the testimonials of our employees, and it also features employees on our blog and social media. In regards to some of our partnerships with some of our nonprofit partners when it comes to like STEAM education, we like to focus on girls, minorities. We focus on students in particular Title I schools that may not have the access to STEM education, and also mentors. So that's a pretty big goal of ours. One thing that we're going to start to work on real soon is partnering with our university recruiting program, and seeing where there's some synergies so that we can start maybe a program in a nonprofit at like an elementary or junior high school level and follow them through high school, potentially college, circle them back to Viasat as an intern, and then hopefully one day hire them. So kind of see our programs in action full circle. Is another big goal of ours. And I would probably say the last major goal is really trying to start this approach of this shared value model where it's a benefit to our business and a positive impact in a community. So if we're going into a new market with our business, is also partnering with social impact so that we can go in there and make a positive impact in the community. So if we're connecting a community for the first time, maybe it's like a literacy digital program that we are going to have for them. So really having that shared value model where we're having social impact and the business go in together.
That's so awesome. And it's really interesting to hear that you have both like very long-term goals and long-range planning, as well as kind of the more immediate, you know, where can we help? What's the need? That's really interesting. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right. So we've covered a little bit about this, but this person had asked, does Viasat contribute to any charitable giving? Are there any, maybe like one that's kind of like your particular favorite, or like maybe a newer area that you're giving to?
Yeah, so we definitely support STEAM education. It's typically K through 12, and I can give a couple examples, some of our signature programs that we have. So there's a program called Tech Trek that's hosted by UCSD here in San Diego, and it's a week-long camp for girls in middle school, and Viasat hosts one of those days on our campus. We have about 120, 150 girls come to campus. And we also have about 50 Viasat employees who volunteer their time that day. We typically try to focus on females, but we do have some men that come and volunteer. But really, it's a way for these girls to come to a campus, a technology company. They get to have a lot of hands-on activities that are, you know, science, technology, engineering based. This past year, unfortunately, over summer because of COVID, we did not host it. But last year when we hosted it, we did a really fun, unique thing where we did, like, instead of speed dating, we called it speed chatting. And so the girls got into these small groups, and every 10 minutes, they got to meet with a female engineer. And so they got to ask them, you know, where do you go to school? How's it, you know, working in a tech company? What do you do on a daily basis? And so these girls just get a feel for what it's like to be a woman in a tech company. So that's a really fun program that we do every year. And again, we have about 50 Viasat employees that volunteer their time. So it's a great outreach program. We also partner with a program called Science Olympiad, where basically it's kind of like the Olympics for science. And we have, again, roughly anywhere from 40 to 60 Viasat volunteers that volunteer their time every day after school, typically from October to March. And they pick a subject and they basically host the subject. And we have about 250 kids that come on our campus, and we have all the rooms all over campus reserved for this program. And then after the 6 months, they compete locally, and then they can go to like a state championship, and sometimes they get to compete nationally as well. So that's another big program that we focus on. It's been really successful.
We had Science Olympiad at my school. I remember that when I was little. So that's really cool that that's still like a thing that's going on.
Awesome. Did you compete?
I did only 1 year because we didn't have the program until, it was for my grade school, and we didn't have the program until 5th grade. So I was only there for 1 more year, but it was really fun.
It's a great program.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm kind of intrigued by this question. This person had asked, why do people or companies ignore issues of sustainability? And I feel like there's a lot of reasons behind them, but maybe what are some of like the bigger reasons why companies particularly like kind of don't address this?
I love this question. I'm the kind of person who's going to call out all the hard questions and challenge people. You can ask Annie. So I loved it. The answer is, to your point, tricky though, and I can't speak for anyone other than myself and my experiences. But I think one of the biggest reasons is, at the end of the day, a company has to be profitable, right? To be sustainable to the company itself, you have to be able to employ your employees. You have to be able to run your facilities. And I think the way that we have framed sustainability historically is that it's at odds with profitability. And you see sustainability as a challenge or as something to overcome, or kind of a thorn in your side, depending on what team you're in. And that can be seen, like I said, at odds with your ROI, right? So imagine that you're a clothing company and someone tells you, okay, you have to be more sustainable. Your first thought is going to be, that's going to be expensive. You're going to make me buy organic fabric instead of not. You're going to tell me I have to purchase offsets, whatever the case may be. I think a lot of people, it sounds like a task. I think it's up to sustainability professionals everywhere. This is my call to all of you, that we change that conversation. And if you apply sustainability as a tool for your organization to find success, there's a lot of opportunity. So go back to that clothing company and say, we invest in the technology to start making our leggings out of plastic water bottles. Well, now you've gone from, oh, I have to spend more on organic cotton, to I can get this near free resource to make my clothing out of. And that's an extreme example, and that's not Viasat, of course, but it's just a way to kind of simplify it. So I think the answer, in my opinion, to largely why is it ignored is it's hard, it's scary, and at the end of the day, people see it as at odds with whatever their core mission is. And we just have to change that. We have to find a way for sustainability to be inextricably linked to your overall business model. Because when you do that, and when you've made that connection, then those programs are no longer on their own, and they're no longer at odds with what the organization is trying to do overall. So I guess I'm also an eternal optimist, which is why I would say, this is both, I think, one of the biggest reasons it's ignored, but also a way that we can work on changing the conversation.
I like that approach too. I think you're very, very accurate in saying that most people hear sustainable and think dollar signs. Like they think it's going to cost an arm and a leg, or it's going to, severely eat into profits or whatever. And for some businesses, that honestly, it may be a real fact, but I feel like for a lot of us, we see that and we think of the upfront cost as opposed to thinking long-term and realizing if you can address these sustainability issues, you are extending the lifespan of this company. You're extending, the amount of time that you can keep providing whatever goods or services that company does. And so in doing so, you're kind of like, it's more of a down payment on your future than it is, than it is just like a huge upfront cost that you have to eat,
Yeah, and I think there's things that are changing in the world that support this evolution, right? There's the demands that investors are making, the public statements BlackRock is making, the demands our customers are making, our own employees, and we have to use all those voices to demonstrate that this is no longer separate from any organization's core mission. So I think use the voices that are screaming the same thing you are to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so this person had written in asking, how are you aiming to be more sustainable? Do you have any sustainability incentives for your employees to help implement? Is becoming carbon neutral an option for the foreseeable future for Viasat?
Yeah, so I think this is a few questions. I think, there's kind of two prongs, and we have both our corporate sustainability programs and then our employee engagement piece around sustainability, and I'll explain why that is. So I think the biggest tool that our employees have for sustainability is their voice, like I said, because it's fantastic to empower employees and to engage your employees, but employees bringing a reusable coffee mug to work at the end of the day is only going to go so far. So I think it's up to organizations, to take accountability for the environmental impacts of the company and not to put that burden, so to speak, entirely on their employees. So I think, how do we engage our employees? In the last year, we did a survey, and it was about all of our CSR topics, so not just sustainability, but it asked very pointed questions about how our employees feel about certain issues of sustainability. And then we are able to turn those answers around and build a business case that involves, recruiting and retention and employee engagement and all those things. And that directly supports our broader corporate sustainability initiatives that are going to have a much larger impact on the world. That being said, I do think that the more people we have out having these conversations in the world, the more things are going to change. So we do very much engage our employees and encourage them to kind of get their hands dirty, so to speak. I'll highlight a couple programs. Earth Day is always a big deal at Viasat. It was a little bit of a sad year for Earth Day this year, but we still sent out some ideas for our employees of what they could do at home. We had an internal communication channel, and everyone could share pictures of their compost or their gardens they were doing with their kids. But normally Earth Day is a bigger on-campus event involving nonprofits and a lot of education around how to get involved in your local community. We also have recycling programs at, especially at our larger offices, and we put out education around what to recycle. That's a never-ending confusion for everyone because every municipality is different, but we do our best to educate our employees. We support alternate forms of commute, so kind of the things you would expect to see on campus. But at the end of the day, I do think the organization, and in our case, of course, Viasat, taking responsibility for the lion's share of what it means to be a sustainable company is really important. The last, I'm not trying to ignore the last part, is becoming carbon neutral in the future. I mean, it has to be on the table for everyone, right? But I think I can't really put out a particular goal that we're going to set. I can say, like I said before, that we are measuring our impacts right now. We're really excited to share them, and we're really excited to begin the work of setting goals. But I think it's really important to know what you're committing to before you do that, and we're just not quite there yet.
I think that's that sounds like a very prudent response, honestly. Like you need to know what is going to be required before you say, yes, we can absolutely do that. So, thank you for that transparency. I think that's very important. All right, hold on a sec, sorry. Pardon me. All right, so this person had asked, how are you supporting your employees and their communities? And how are you seeing that support circle back to help strengthen Viasat? Do you have some examples you could share?
I'll go ahead and answer this one. And I love whoever posed this question said supporting your employees, because I think that's really important, that we're not giving an offering, we're actually supporting our employees and the causes that they care about. So we kind of have a three-pronged approach. The first one is really, we have a one-to-one match for employees that donate to the causes that they care about. And each employee gets $2,000 a year for that match allocation. Which is a great program that we have. In addition, we have an awesome volunteer program. So anytime a employee volunteers, it can be for an organization, a nonprofit, or it can be something like I made sandwiches and I went downtown and delivered them to a few homeless folks. Anytime you volunteer, you get $10 an hour that gets put into kind of like an online bank. And then you can take that money and you can give it to the charity of your choice. So if you volunteer 200 hours a year, you have $2,000 to give to the charity of your choice. In addition, we have an employee relief fund, which is basically used if you're an employee and you're going through a financial hardship. It could be due to a death in the family, it could be a natural disaster, it could be an unforeseen illness. You can apply to receive a grant to help you out with your financial status with that. And in addition, the great thing about it is that employees can actually donate to that fund too. So employees know that they can help out other employees that are in time of need. So that's kind of the three-pronged approach of how we support employees on the giving side. And I think answer the second part of the question about the support and how does it circle back to strengthen Viasat. There's tons of different ways. I think one of them is obviously increased employer brand, knowing that employees are supported this way. It gets out into the community and people know it's a great place to work. Hiring and attraction is another aspect. Retention, there's a lot of data that shows when an employee is engaged and they're happy and they love their company, they're going to stay with the company. And one way that we measure this and track this is each year we have an employee engagement survey. Actually, it's not each year, it's every 18 months or so. And we ask employees how they feel about Viasat, how they feel about the community, and we ask for their feedback. And some of the great aspects of that survey that I can share with you guys, the last survey we did, 93% of employees say they're proud to work at Viasat. 91% would recommend Viasat as a good place to work. 91% say they're motivated to go beyond what is normally expected to help Viasat be successful. 89% say Viasat takes a genuine interest in the well-being of its employees. And 87% say that they clearly understand their own job contributes to achieving the goals of Viasat. And then 87% said that Viasat is committed to fostering a diverse and inclusive culture. So we love this survey because it gives us all the data that we need to know that we are doing a good job, always room for improvement. But I think it just goes to show that having these employee programs and supporting your employees is really important.
Absolutely, and that's really awesome that you guys do that much to try and help your employees and help them have a good impact in their own communities. So that's really cool. All right, so this person wrote in saying, I love that Viasat believes in supporting our communities through so many avenues. How does the company encourage its employees to volunteer for charities?
Yeah, one way that we encourage employees is every year we do something called Viasat Volunteer Week. It's a week of service, and we started it back in 2016. And we really encourage employees to get out there and volunteer. It can be on an individual basis. It could be with your family. It could be in a group. And then we also typically have volunteer events at all of our different campuses around the world. Every year we've increased number of employees, number of volunteer hours, and number of locations. Our goal is to get every single location to participate, excuse me. We're really, really close to that, but it's a really exciting time. Employees absolutely love it. Unfortunately, this year, it's in October every year, and due to COVID, we are changing it where we're going to do virtual volunteer week and also do at-home activities due to social distancing and things like that. But we're excited to switch it up a little bit this year, and it's a really impactful program. We do a survey every time, again, after this to kind of gauge employees and their excitement about it. And I think 98% of employees said they're very likely to suggest the experience to other employees. And 88% of employees said that it increased their connection and engagement with the larger Viasat community. So it's just a really fun event. Employees love it. And we do a big push for it. We do a big campaign. And then afterwards, we do an awesome wrap-up newsletter. We show pictures from every location. And it's just really, really cool to see employees all over the world volunteering.
That's so nice. I love that idea. And I love that you instead of just kind of scrapping it, you're like, no, we'll still do it. It'll look a little bit different, but here's how we can, kind of keep this tradition and this really very positive impact thing going. So, yeah.
Yeah, and employees are looking for some positivity right now for sure. So.
Oh, absolutely. Do you have a favorite charity that you like to support?
Well, I am a little biased because I did work for the Boys and Girls Clubs for 9 years. So it definitely has my heart. They're a great organization. I've truly seen, young children and adults get their lives changed by the program. So it's a great after school program. The staff that works there is just, they don't get paid too much, but they are there because they love the kids and they want to see these kids grow up and make something of themselves. So that's where my heart lies.
And how about you, Allison? Do you have a specific charity that you like to work with?
I don't think it's any surprise that the top one that I tend to go for is Nature and Culture International. It's a conservation nonprofit, and they protect the Amazon. It's actually kind of based here in San Diego, surprisingly enough, but they employ, the local peoples, and the work that they do is just incredible. So not sponsored, but that would be mine. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It's always interesting to me to see what kind of causes people support outside of work, just because the things that pull at people's heartstrings are really kind of unexpected, and it gives you a really nice window into the people you work with. We actually, PowerToFly has a similar program where we did a donation thing for Christmas. And so instead of doing Secret Santa, we call it Secret Snowflake. And you pick, you kind of draw names out of a hat, but then you have to do some recon with other members of that person's team to find out more about that person. And then you get to pick a charity based on something like an interest that they have, so that you can give wherever you're able. Because since we're world distributed, not everybody that's in Argentina has the ability to donate to maybe an organization in America. So they do it that way. So I think this year somebody donated to an animal shelter rescue on my behalf, and the person that I drew, she believes in upskilling and things like that. So I donated to a cause that provides interview counseling for homeless people as they're trying to get back on their feet.
That's a great idea.
It was really cool. It's when I first heard about it, because this last Christmas was my first with PowerToFly, or last holiday season with PowerToFly. And when they first explained it, I was like, I don't understand. I have to figure out what they would want. But then when I started digging into it, it was really interesting, because then I got to kind of learn more about this person through another team member, so that it was a surprise leading up till I think we had a team meeting to kind of exchange your donation, so that way people would find out what you found out about them and what organization you donated to. And yeah, we had people doing everything from I think there was one that was Boys and Girls Club, there was cancer research, there was one that was something about, there was a lot of animal activists, that kind of thing. It was really fun.
That's awesome. I might steal that idea from you.
You are more than welcome to. It's definitely one of those that should spread a lot of places. It was really cool. Plus, who needs another $5 or $20 thing for the top of your desk?
Exactly.
Spread the wealth. All right. So this other question that somebody had submitted, this person asked, what are the career growth opportunities in different departments like at Viasat? So this is obviously less on the subject of philanthropy, but how do you see the opportunity for career growth within departments at Viasat?
Answer that. So I think I can't really speak on behalf of all the departments at Viasat, but I can definitely kind of give you a rundown of my experience there. I came in from the nonprofit sector, and so it was a complete, total career change for me. I did start a little bit on the lower of the totem pole, but I made that decision because I wanted to, get immersed in corporate giving. I have since had the most amazing experience. I've been promoted a couple of times. I have a manager who truly cares about my success in the organization. And it's just been wonderful. I think also our learning and development team is great. They've got amazing programs. I can speak to a couple of them. There's a buddy program. So when you get hired, you get paired up with somebody, which was great, because when you're new and you come to this huge campus, you don't know anybody. You don't even know where the bathrooms are. There's tons of people there. And so you get paired up with somebody and you get to meet with them, and they kind of share their experience at Viasat. They, show you around. They get to know you a little. It's nice because it's a friendly face on campus. So that's the buddy program. And then there's also a facilitator program. There's a mentorship program through our learning and development, which has been great. Another really cool thing that they implemented about a year and a half ago is they have a dedicated role inside of Viasat that really helps you determine your goals and your career path, and then help you achieve that. And you can reach out to this person anytime and kind of be like, hey, I feel stuck. Where should I be going? What should I be doing? And they're so helpful. They're really there for you to understand what your goals are, where you want to go within the company. Maybe it's a lateral move. Maybe you want to try something totally different. Maybe you want to grow in the company, and they really help you kind of manage through that. And it's really awesome. So my experience has been really positive. And I think, from people that I've talked to, I haven't heard anything otherwise. So it's been wonderful.
Yeah, and I can chime in too. I think my career story at Viasat goes a long way to show how our culture is. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this, I started in communications. That was what my background was. That was where I'd been my whole, professional life. And I read a book called The Zero Waste Home by B. Johnson. Highly recommend it. But it literally changed my life. I became hyper passionate about climate change and about using my voice to help solve it. And I just started posting like crazy about it on my own personal Instagram. I happened to be friends with the director of social impact who saw this. And around that time, she was looking at how to evolve our team and go from just being focused on giving to being a true CSR program. And she reached out to me and she said, we need to add sustainability to this team. You're so passionate. You understand Viasat's culture and our communication channels. And I was fairly surprised because I had no background in it, right? And I said that, and she said, you know what, your passion and your knowledge of our culture and our communication channels are very important, and you can learn because you're smart, and so you can figure out how to do this. And that continued, eventually ended up, of course, getting my master's degree from ASU while I was working full time. And to me, that's it's not as uncommon as you might think. So to the point that Annie was making, there's resources to help you figure out, are you doing what you're most passionate about? If you're not, how can we change that? But keep you at Viasat because we really value our people and want to grow them to their fullest potential.
Thank you for sharing that. We did have a couple of questions that came in anonymously on the chat, if you don't mind addressing them. This person had asked if you would both share how long you've each been with Viasat. And then her follow-up was asking about if onboarding practices, such as Annie had described, have been adapted in this COVID environment.
I can start. I've been with Viasat just over 4 years. My 4-year anniversary was in June, so very exciting. What was the second part of the question?
If onboarding practices like you had described have been adapted to a COVID environment, or if there's been like a major shift there for you guys.
That is a great question. Allison, I'm not sure if you know, but I am not aware. I can definitely find out and send a follow-up. I'm assuming they have been gone virtual because most of our stuff has gone virtual, but I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, well, I'll start with the first part. I think about 6.5 years I've been at Viasat. So I was in the communications team for the first 2. I think I joined the CSR team right about when Annie was hired. So you can't tell, but I'm looking at her and saying 2 years, I think I was in internal comms and then transitioned to my current role. In terms of hiring, I do know 2 folks who got hired during COVID. I don't know all the details. It is virtual, and our IT team is, of course, working very closely with onboarding and getting everyone situated. I don't honestly know. I think we have a lot of tools that have been really helpful in terms of acclimating new employees. It's obviously a challenging time. Our culture is one of our greatest pride points, and how do we maintain that? But, we have internal chat mechanisms and ways to reach out to each other. So I imagine it feels very different, unfortunately, but I think we are all kind of pitching in to try to welcome people to that same culture as best as we can. You know, some teams do virtual happy hours. Our team, we sit in people and culture is what we call HR, and our team does virtual happy hours. And I think other teams are doing similar things. So everyone's kind of doing what we can.
No, I can completely understand the shift. It's a little jarring. I know when I first did remote onboarding for PowerToFly, it was very jarring because like I start work today. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm sitting at my office in my house and I don't know what I'm doing. So it was very odd. And that was even absent, you know, a global pandemic and everybody else at work being used to working in person. And so now they're trying to shift too. And so I can only imagine how kind of disorienting that has to be. But you're right. It is definitely an opportunity for us all to kind of help over communicate with each other, lead with kindness, and you know, kind of help everybody get on board and get adjusted because we're all doing this for the first time every day. So yeah. All right. So this next person had asked, what are other strategies you think companies can and should implement to encourage responsibility and sustainability, and ones that Viasat can really model for the rest of the industry?
Yeah, so it's tough, obviously, to recommend a strategy across all industries. I think there's a few things. You know, with our team, when I came onto this team 4 years ago, sustainability was not at the forefront of what people were talking about, to be completely honest. And it was the challenge of how do we get it on the map? And I would say the biggest strategy that you can do in any way, shape, or form at an organization is to find the low-hanging fruit that is very, very visible. So at Viasat, what that was coffee. Everyone loves coffee. We all drink a lot of coffee. And at the time, it pains me to admit it, but our main means of getting coffee to our employees was Keurig machines. I had had my eye on those Keurig machines for the 2 years that I'd been working in comms, but it wasn't really my job to get to address them. So I had my sights set on them immediately. To make a long story short, we were able to have this big coffee tasting and employees got to turn out. They got to vote on the type of drip coffee that was going to replace the Keurig machines. We did this massive rollout across campus. It was conveniently at the same time that Viasat was going through a big rebrand, so we were able to give out these beautiful coffee mugs with our new logo to encourage the use of mugs and not disposable cups. And our facilities team was just terrified that the inbox would be flooded with people furious that their Keurigs were being taken away, because people are very particular about their coffee and they're used to what they drink. And at the end of the day, it was a hit. Everyone loved it. We got very few complaints. There were a few logistical snags because you're talking about thousands of people on campus. But overall, it was a big success. And it was so visible that everyone at Viasat saw it. And everyone saw that in the end, even though we changed their habits and we changed their coffee, it was a win because people understood why we did it. And in some ways, that was like our first baby tipping point, and there have been bigger ones along the way. But if you're at an organization that really has not put a toe in the water yet, that would be my recommendation. Besides having your passionate team, is find a big win, make it super visible, and make sure it goes off well and the engagement goes well. And you'll see the train kind of leave the station from there.
I love that. And I love the community involvement. I love that you gave people not only the information of like, here's why we're doing this, but you gave them an opportunity to help then decide what the next new thing is. So presenting them with the options that are more sustainable or that are better for the bottom line, like makes a ton of sense, because that way you've got somebody that's really also has buy-in on this decision, and also is not just being told, okay, well, we're doing, you know, not only did you not keep them in the dark with just like changing the coffee overnight, but, you know, informing them of like, here's what's happening and here's why we're doing it. Like, I think a couple of years back, there was some ad about like orangutans and how a bunch of the things that we buy are bad for orangutans because they use palm oil. And immediately I cared a lot more about what my shampoo choice was, because like, I I don't want to be thinking about sad orangutans when I'm sudsing my hair in the morning. Like, I want to make sure that I'm not contributing to the problem. So that I feel like that transparency and that extra communication with your employees is huge. Yeah, because then you're not dealing with like an angry crowd that understandably wants their coffee in the morning, but you're dealing with people that see where these choices can help. You know, how small changes and small choices can help make a big impact. So that's really important.
Yeah, and I mean, the last thing I would add is how can Viasat model for our industry? This is where we get bigger picture, right? So that Keurig story that I told, that was give or take 4 years ago. And where we've been able to come from then is the commitment to a public report. And that public report, that is us modeling for the industry, because that is us going beyond compliance, beyond requirement to say we're being transparent about our impacts and invite you to do the same, right? And that's what you're seeing across so many industries. And so that's where I think hopefully we can be a model for tech and for satellite and for all the other companies who are, you know, we're not Google, we're not Microsoft, we don't necessarily have the same resources to do these big, hairy, audacious goals, but at the same time, we all have to start prioritizing this. So more of the kind of middle guy type companies have to start putting their stake in the ground too, and that's where I think we're modeling for the industry.
Well, and every drip makes a puddle. You know, it's yes, you might not be on the same like size as like Microsoft or something, but buy-in from smaller and middle-sized companies is honestly almost more important because there's more of them. So even if you're only going, you know, what you can do and within reason and what's sustainable and what can continue, it's still something that wasn't being done yesterday. You know, I mean, I keep remembering this thing that I heard from a really lovely girl who was kind of an insufferable vegan, who wanted to talk about, you know, even if you just eat one less hot dog, you don't need people that are practicing veganism perfectly. You need people that are making that move away from mainstream protein sources and into, you know, alternative options because they're more, you know, better for the planet or whatever. And it made me a lot less, you know, clinging to my bacon cheeseburger, to realize that, yeah, it's these small incremental steps that, yeah, I mean, it's only like you said, like bringing my own cup of coffee to work in the morning, but those are, you know, if you do that the entire year, it's that many paper coffee cups you haven't used. So yes, it's small, but I think that you're right. It's very important to not only do this in a responsible way and one that you can really continue with, but also to do those things that are stretching you within the industry and setting that standard. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's why we don't say, oh, we only focus on employee engagement with environment, or oh, we only focus on the corporate side. You have to bring them both together because that's where you'll have your greatest impact, right? For your employees to deeply understand the work that you're doing and play their part, but for you as an organization to take accountability as well. Absolutely.
So have you seen any of these initiatives translate to people working at home? Like you had talked about for your Earth Day celebration, you sent out ideas of you know, alternative ways people could celebrate. Have you seen any kind of movement like this or any, you know, steps in this direction as people are working from home?
It's a little tougher to keep tabs on people, right? In the office, I know how many paper cups we order and how much paper we order, and I know what our energy usage is and all those things. So we are a company that is always pushing technical boundaries, and that means our people are really busy. So it doesn't necessarily feel appropriate to try to check in on what they're doing at home or use surveys for those types of things. We invite engagement, right? Like with Earth Day, we invited people to post pictures and share stories, and you heard a lot of people talking about it. But to be totally honest, it is a lot harder to know the impact that an individual is having at home. We're not watching them through their webcams or anything like that.
Well, absolutely not. The FBI is already doing that, so, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. So to keep us moving, because I know we don't have a ton of time left, this person had written in saying, I'm a sustainability consultant in the architecture and building sector, but I'm interested in working in corporate sustainability. Other than knowledge of GRI and an MBA, what do you look for in a future team member?
Yeah, I think there's a few other frameworks, right? SASB is kind of growing in popularity. I would say a strong knowledge of CDP and the greenhouse gas accounting. I imagine you probably have those things as well. I think the first thing I will always look for is for someone who's not doing this as a job. You're doing it for a passion, because there's a lot easier jobs that you could do. I think no matter how fantastically green of an organization you're working for, your job is literally to always push the envelope. So that means you're always pushing back on people, no matter how great you're already doing. There has to be a better way. If you're carbon negative, let's look at, or sorry, if you're carbon neutral, let's look at carbon negative, right? So that's the first thing, is just a resilient attitude and someone who's doing it for passion, so that they will keep kind of fighting the good fight, so to speak. But other than that, I think an interesting thing that I've come up against using consultants, probably much like yourself, is that a huge challenge, especially at a company like ours, I alluded to, the technical knowledge that you have to have of the services that we offer and what it takes to put those services out in the world. It's a lot for someone who's got a background in communications and not an engineering background. So I think that at companies like ours, having an engineer or a technical person to advise the sustainability team about, you know, are you aware of this particular piece of the process may have a large environmental impact, whereas I maybe don't even know that that's a part of the process, if that makes sense. So I think a deep knowledge of the industry specifically that you want to be working in corporate sustainability with would probably make you stand out from other candidates.
Well, I mean, it seems like pretty logical to me. I mean, you can't really help somebody move towards sustainability if you don't fully understand what they're doing now that maybe is less than advisable. Like it's very hard to come in and just be like, well, unplug all the toasters at the end of the night or whatever, when that's not really what they do there. So, you know, if you're running an entire server room and that's taking up a lot more of your kilowatts, then, you know, maybe let's address the real, you know, issues at heart there. So yeah, very good advice. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so this person asked a dual question about if you hire for remote roles, and if so, how Viasat's interview process has potentially changed or shifted due to COVID-19.
Answer that one. So we do hire for remote roles. I think the best way is to go to our career site and check out and see what roles are open, what recs are open. That's viasat.com/careers. There's a lot of other great information on that site as well. Due to COVID, obviously, non-essential workers at Viasat are working remotely at this time. And I think it's probably best if you have a recruiter and you are interested in a role, just to work with them and understand what the process is on that interview, because I'm assuming most, you know, the interview processes are different between departments and roles.
Absolutely. So I've put both of those links back into the chat one more time so everybody can see them. Both the link to the careers page at Viasat's website, as well as their PowerToFly company page. Just a quick reminder again, if you follow them, if you follow Viasat's page on the PowerToFly site, not only will you get updates when they post new roles, but you'll get updated when there's you know, new involvement for, you know, upcoming events that's happening. It's also a really, really good way to show Viasat that you are interested in working with them. So if they engage PowerToFly for, you know, some of our sourcing services or something, that's the first place that PowerToFly talent advocates look to see, you know, who might be a really good fit for an upcoming role based on who's already interested in Viasat. So that's you know, kind of something that you can do as a job seeker that will help put you head and shoulders above the rest of the crowd. So thank you for sharing that about COVID, because I know that everybody's had to make changes, but not every company has done the same thing. So it's very helpful to kind of know where you stand there. All right, so we have come to the end of our questions that were pre-submitted. We do have about 4 minutes left. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask either Annie or Allison or both, you're more than welcome to come up mute and ask. You can also put them into the Zoom group chat. While we wait to see if anybody has any last minute questions they'd like to ask, I do want to just check in with both of you. I'm going to skip around because my favorite question is about what your favorite part is about working at Viasat. So would either of you care to address that?
I can start. I think, you know, if you hung out with Annie and I in person, you would know that we're super close friends. And my favorite part, hands down, of working at Viasat is my team. It's not just me and Annie. We have a fantastic team, and we're small but mighty. And I think we are just, you know, both great friends, but also I'm proud of what we accomplished together, and we always lift each other up. And it's a tough like industry, you know, as I said, to be in, and I couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, and I would say, obviously, the same as Allison. I think the people at Viasat are wonderful. I've met so many amazing people. I've made so many great friends. I think also just the culture. It's a very, you know, work hard, play hard culture, and I love that. People are so dedicated. You have some of the most intelligent people I've ever met working there, but then they're also just good people and just fun to be around. So it's just a great culture. Everyone's friendly. It's a very relaxed environment. You know, you can pretty much, you know, wear whatever you want. Everyone does, you know, fun things together. So it's a fun, amazing culture.
Yeah, I mean, I actually miss going to the office right now, which I think that says something about Viasat, right? I went to the office to pick up this chair because what I was sitting in was not acceptable day after day, and it was empty, and I was kind of deeply sad, which is sad, but also it made me really grateful because we're going to get to go back, and Annie and I will get to be in our offices next to each other again. And I just think even my kids miss going to the office with me. We have a frozen yogurt machine on campus, and I think that says a lot about the company, that my whole family misses the opportunity to get to go to campus, right? So that kind of sums it up, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really, I mean, I think you're right. It's one of those things that's like, it's sad, but it's kind of nice to know that you have that tie there. We did get one last question, if you don't mind taking it. Wendy had asked, how do you see sustainability potentially impacting the ways other departments do business, like engineering, quality, finance, HR?
That's a great question. I think a really well-run sustainability program has an advocate in every single team, at least one. And that's one of the things that I've spent a lot of time in also. You don't want to work with the person in engineering who is skeptical or doesn't understand. You want to find the person on that team who's really excited about the work you're doing. So even though sustainability, corporate sustainability, whatever you want to call it, is centralized and relatively small, we have these fantastic partnerships, and we have these little strike teams in every team, right? So in supply chain, I know who I'm going to, same in facilities, same with engineering, and I think that's really important. So sustainability, if it's melded in with your business model, like I suggested, then it's much bigger than the team itself.
Excellent. And it's a really, thank you for answering and taking that last minute question. That was very interesting and very, very important message to spread. So thank you. All right, so we are out of time for today, unfortunately. It always goes so quickly. But I just want to take a second to thank Annie and Allison for taking time out of your day to spend with our community and answer so many really interesting questions. It's very much appreciated. So thank you for spending time and sharing what you do with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
For the rest of our community, a huge thank you to all of you who came and participated today. Thank you to everybody who submitted really amazing questions. It was really, really great getting to sift through those and find the ones that we were going to have Annie and Allison address today. So thank you for that. I put a couple links into the chat where you can check out, like I said, check out Viasat's open roles and as well as their own website. I also put a link where you can check out some of our upcoming virtual events. We've got more stuff happening next week. So hopefully we'll see more of you around. And with that, I'm going to bid everyone good afternoon, and hopefully you all enjoy your weekends.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.